This moment did not arrive by chance, and your awareness of it is not random or accidental. Every experience that led you here has been shaping your readiness to receive what is being revealed now. Even the delays, the detours, and the moments of confusion were aligning pieces behind the scenes, preparing your heart and mind for this exact point in time. When you recognize that intention is woven into the fabric of your life, uncertainty begins to lose its power over you. There are seasons when life feels scattered, when events seem disconnected and purpose feels hidden. Yet intention does not require your understanding to be active. It operates quietly, consistently, and precisely, moving things into place long before you notice the pattern. What feels like coincidence is often coordination, and what looks like interruption is frequently direction unfolding in an unexpected form. You may have questioned why certain doors closed or why progress appeared slower than you expected. Those moments were not setbacks, but safeguards, designed to redirect your steps away from paths that would have drained you or delayed your growth. Intentional moments often disguise themselves as disappointment because they are protecting a future you cannot yet see clearly. Every encounter, every realization, and every inner stirring carries meaning when viewed through intention. The people who crossed your path, the words that stayed with you, and the lessons that challenged you were not placed randomly. Each one contributed something necessary, whether it strengthened your discernment, refined your patience, or expanded your vision. Timing plays a powerful role in intentional moments because readiness matters as much as opportunity. What you were not prepared to receive before could overwhelm you now if it arrived too early. Growth requires sequence, and intention respects order, allowing development to occur step by step rather than all at once. Even moments of silence and waiting are filled with purpose, shaping discipline, humility, and trust. When nothing seems to be happening externally, something is being formed internally. Stillness is often where alignment takes place, where distractions fade and clarity begins to emerge beneath the surface. Doubt often arises when intention is misunderstood, making you question whether your efforts matter or if direction truly exists. Yet the presence of doubt does not cancel purpose. It simply reveals the importance of trust during moments when clarity has not fully arrived. Intention continues to operate even when confidence wavers. Awareness of intention changes how you interpret your present circumstances. Instead of reacting with fear or frustration, you begin to observe with curiosity and openness. You start asking what this moment is developing within you rather than what it is taking away from you. When you accept that this moment carries meaning, you stop rushing through it and start engaging with it fully. Attention replaces anxiety and reflection replaces resistance. You become more present, more receptive, and more willing to learn from what is unfolding right in front of you. Nothing about where you are now is wasted or misplaced. Every breath, thought, and realization is part of a larger design working toward growth and alignment. The recognition of intention allows you to stand firmly in the present, knowing that this moment is not an accident, but a deliberate step in a greater unfolding. Grace does not arrive as a reward for effort or as payment for perfection. It is not something you collect by proving your worth or by meeting a flawless standard. Grace exists outside the system of achievement because it flows from love rather than evaluation. When you understand this, the pressure to constantly perform begins to loosen its grip on your heart and mind. Many people exhaust themselves trying to earn what was never meant to be earned. They measure their value by productivity, success, or moral strength, believing that acceptance must be justified. Yet grace interrupts that mindset by offering itself freely, not because you have done enough, but because you are willing to receive it. Surrender opens the door that striving keeps shut. Performance depends on control, while surrender depends on trust. When you are focused on performance, you attempt to manage every outcome, fearing failure and rejection. Surrender releases that burden by acknowledging that your strength has limits, and that dependence is not weakness but wisdom. Grace meets you precisely where control ends. Letting go of performance does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means releasing the illusion that your efforts define your worth. You still act, grow, and improve, but your actions flow from acceptance rather than desperation. When surrender becomes your foundation, growth becomes sustainable instead of exhausting. Grace reaches you in moments when you feel unqualified and undone. It does not wait for confidence to appear or fear to disappear. In fact, it often becomes most visible when you admit that you cannot do everything on your own. Surrender creates space for grace to work beyond your limitations. There is a quiet freedom that comes when you stop striving to be enough and start trusting that you already are held. Comparison loses its grip because grace does not compete. Shame begins to fade because grace does not accuse. In surrender, you experience relief that performance could never provide. The habit of performance trains you to hide weakness and magnify strength. Surrender does the opposite. It brings honesty to the surface and invites transformation. Grace does not demand that you pretend to be strong. It empowers you to be real and still supported. When surrender replaces performance, your relationship with effort changes. You stop working from fear of rejection and start working from gratitude. Action becomes an expression of trust rather than an attempt to secure approval. Grace fuels consistency without draining your soul. Surrender also shifts how you respond to failure. Instead of collapsing under guilt or striving to compensate, you learn to rest in grace and realign. Mistakes become moments of learning rather than proof of unworthiness. Grace teaches you to rise without self-condemnation. Grace is always present, but surrender determines your awareness of it. Performance keeps your hands clenched while surrender opens them. In releasing the need to earn, you discover that grace has been carrying you all along. Divine love is not limited by human timelines or confined by past events. It does not pause to review your history before reaching towards you in the present. While people often define one another by former choices, divine love looks deeper, seeing who you are becoming rather than who you once were. This love moves forward without dragging yesterday's weight into today. Mistakes may leave memories, but they do not leave permanent barriers. Divine love does not withdraw when failure appears, nor does it lessen when regret surfaces. Instead, it remains steady, offering restoration where condemnation would normally take control. What you consider disqualifying is often the very place where love demonstrates its power most clearly. There are moments when shame attempts to convince you that you have gone too far or missed your opportunity. Divine love counters that lie by refusing to measure worth through error. It understands the complexity of growth and allows room for transformation without rushing or rejection. This patience is not indifference but intentional care. Past mistakes can shape perspective, but they do not define identity. Divine love separates what you did from who you are, allowing healing to take place without erasing responsibility. It invites learning rather than labeling, growth rather than punishment, and renewal rather than exclusion. When you carry the weight of former decisions, it becomes difficult to believe that love still reaches you fully. Yet divine love does not approach cautiously or partially. It arrives complete, undiluted, and unchanged, regardless of how far you believe you have fallen. Its consistency is not influenced by your inconsistency. Fear often whispers that forgiveness has limits and that grace eventually runs out. Divine love operates from a different source, one that does not deplete or weaken over time. It continues to pursue, restore, and rebuild even when trust feels fragile and confidence feels distant. Acceptance of divine love requires releasing the need to relive old failures. Holding on to regret keeps you anchored in moments that were never meant to be permanent. Divine love calls you forward, encouraging movement beyond the places where you once stumbled. The presence of divine love transforms how you view your past. Instead of seeing only damage, you begin to recognize lessons, strength, and resilience formed through experience. Love reframes history not by denying it, but by redeeming it through purpose. Divine love does not wait for perfect understanding or complete healing before drawing near. It walks alongside you in the process, allowing restoration to unfold gradually. This companionship turns recovery into relationship rather than obligation. No mistake has the authority to outlive divine love. Its reach extends beyond regret, beyond guilt, and beyond memory. Where the past once held power, love now offers freedom and forward movement. Trust changes the lens through which difficulties are viewed, altering the meaning assigned to every challenge. What once appeared as an obstacle becomes an opportunity for growth when trust is present. Instead of reacting with fear or resistance, the mind begins to search for understanding, recognizing that difficulty does not automatically imply defeat or failure. Without trust, challenges feel personal and overwhelming, often interpreted as evidence of inadequacy or abandonment. With trust, those same challenges are seen as temporary conditions rather than permanent judgments. This shift softens emotional responses and allows reason, patience, and wisdom to guide decisions instead of panic. Trust introduces the belief that purpose can exist even in discomfort. It opens the possibility that struggle is not random but meaningful, carrying lessons that contribute to long-term development. When trust is active, pain is no longer wasted energy but a source of insight and refinement. The presence of trust reduces the urgency to escape hardship at any cost. Instead of rushing toward quick solutions, there is space to observe, learn, and respond thoughtfully. This measured approach often leads to outcomes that are stronger and more sustainable than those produced by fear-driven reactions. Challenges often reveal inner strengths that comfort never requires. Trust allows individuals to recognize these moments as opportunities to discover resilience, discipline, and clarity. Each difficulty becomes a mirror, reflecting capacities that might have remained hidden without pressure. When trust guides interpretation, comparison loses influence. Rather than measuring progress against others, attention turns inward toward personal alignment and growth. This perspective prevents discouragement and fosters patience, knowing that every journey unfolds according to its own rhythm. Trust also reshapes the emotional weight of uncertainty. Unknown outcomes no longer feel threatening but become part of a process that does not require full visibility to move forward. This confidence in unseen support encourages persistence even when results are delayed. Setbacks are redefined through trust as redirection rather than rejection. What feels like a closed door may be guiding attention toward a more aligned path. Trust permits acceptance without resignation, allowing momentum to continue without bitterness or resentment. Interpretation influences endurance, and trust strengthens the ability to remain steady under pressure. Instead of collapsing under difficulty, there is an understanding that endurance itself is building something valuable. Challenges become chapters in a larger narrative rather than final conclusions. Through trust, hardship is no longer an enemy, but a teacher. Every challenge carries information, shaping perspective and character over time. This transformation in interpretation allows individuals to move forward with calm determination, even when the road remains demanding. Faith is often misunderstood as simple agreement or quiet acceptance, but true faith demands movement, intention, and alignment. Passive belief remains internal and unchanged, while active alignment reshapes decisions, habits, and direction. Faith becomes visible not through words alone, but through consistent actions that reflect trust beyond thought. Belief can exist without transformation, but alignment requires adjustment. When faith is active, it influences how priorities are arranged and how time is invested. Choices begin to reflect conviction, revealing whether belief has taken root or remains theoretical. Alignment turns faith into a lived experience rather than a distant idea. Active faith requires awareness of inconsistency between values and behavior. It invites correction rather than denial, growth rather than comfort. Alignment does not demand perfection, but it does require honesty and willingness to change direction when actions no longer reflect trust. Faith expressed through alignment often feels uncomfortable at first because it challenges familiar patterns. Comfort thrives in predictability, while faith invites steps into uncertainty. Active alignment means moving forward before guarantees appear, trusting that clarity follows commitment. When faith is aligned with action, discipline replaces hesitation. Decisions are no longer delayed by fear of failure or approval. Instead, confidence grows through obedience to conviction, allowing momentum to build gradually through consistent practice. Passive belief waits for circumstances to change before responding. Active alignment responds first, knowing that action often precedes visible results. This approach shifts responsibility inward, empowering individuals to participate in their own growth rather than waiting to be moved. Alignment also influences how challenges are approached. Instead of retreating when resistance appears, active faith leans forward, adjusting strategy without abandoning trust. This resilience transforms setbacks into opportunities to strengthen commitment and clarity. Faith that aligns with action reshapes identity over time. Repeated alignment reinforces self-trust and strengthens character, creating consistency between inner belief and outer expression. What once required effort begins to feel natural through repetition. Active alignment deepens faith by providing evidence through experience. Each step taken in trust confirms that belief is not empty but effective. Confidence grows not from theory but from lived results that reinforce commitment. Faith reaches its full expression when belief and behavior move together. Alignment closes the gap between intention and action, allowing trust to shape every area of life. Through active alignment, faith becomes a guiding force rather than a silent thought. Here is a lengthy 10-paragraph expansion with no heading and no concluding sentence, exactly as requested. Faith is often mistaken for agreement in thought alone, but real faith demands motion, adjustment, and deliberate alignment. Passive belief remains comfortable because it requires no disruption to routine, while active faith challenges existing patterns. When faith is genuine, it presses beyond internal conviction and begins reshaping outward behavior in visible ways. Alignment requires intention because belief without action stays incomplete. Faith becomes meaningful only when it influences choices, priorities, and responses. What you align with determines what you move toward, and faith that stays theoretical never gains momentum. Alignment transforms belief into a living force rather than an abstract idea. Active faith asks for consistency between what is trusted and what is practiced. It exposes gaps between values and behavior, not to condemn, but to invite growth. Alignment does not eliminate struggle. It clarifies direction so effort is no longer wasted in contradiction. Passive belief waits for reassurance, while active alignment moves before certainty arrives. Faith does not demand full understanding in advance. It requires willingness to act and trust. Alignment begins where comfort ends, requiring courage to step forward without guarantees. When faith is aligned with action, decisions gain clarity. Hesitation weakens because conviction leads the way. Instead of reacting to fear or uncertainty, aligned faith produces disciplined movement rooted in trust rather than impulse. Alignment also reshapes how resistance is handled. Challenges do not cancel faith, they test alignment. Active faith adjusts without retreating, refining approach while remaining committed to direction. This flexibility strengthens trust rather than diminishing it. Faith expressed through alignment builds endurance. Each aligned action reinforces belief, creating confidence through experience. Over time, trust deepens because faith is no longer imagined but proven through lived obedience. Passive belief avoids responsibility, placing outcomes entirely outside personal action. Active alignment accepts responsibility for movement, understanding that faith and effort are not opposites but partners. Alignment engages participation rather than waiting. As alignment continues, identity begins to shift. Faith becomes integrated into behavior, speech, and decision-making. What once required effort becomes habit through repetition and commitment. Faith reaches maturity when belief and action move in unity, when alignment replaces hesitation, and when trust is demonstrated through consistent direction rather than silent agreement. Waiting often disguises itself as wisdom, but delay can quietly become disobedience to what is already clear. Immediate action is required because clarity rarely increases with hesitation. Trust is not something that slowly arrives on its own. It is a decision that must be made in the present moment. The longer action is postponed, the louder doubt becomes. There is a narrow window when conviction is strongest, and that moment is now. When awareness surfaces, it signals readiness, not preparation. Trust must be chosen before fear has time to rewrite the narrative and convince you to retreat into comfort. Action taken now interrupts cycles of indecision that keep growth stalled. Trust is not proven by intention but by response. What you choose to do immediately after recognizing truth reveals what you truly believe. Action activates trust while delay weakens it. Momentum is built by obedience in the present, not by plans for the future. Hesitation often feels harmless, but it trains the mind to ignore conviction. Each delayed response makes the next one easier to avoid. Immediate action strengthens alignment by reinforcing that trust deserves priority over convenience and comfort. Fear thrives in postponed decisions. When action is delayed, imagination fills the gap with worst-case scenarios. Choosing trust now silences those voices by replacing speculation with movement. Action narrows focus and restores clarity through engagement. Opportunities connected to trust are time-sensitive. They do not wait for perfect conditions or emotional readiness. Immediate action demonstrates confidence in guidance rather than dependence on circumstances. Trust moves first and allows understanding to follow. Choosing trust now does not eliminate uncertainty, but it prevents paralysis. Movement creates feedback, direction, and adjustment. Standing still offers none of these. Action turns uncertainty into a pathway instead of a barrier. Every meaningful shift begins with a first step taken before comfort arrives. Trust grows through practice, not contemplation. Immediate action initiates a cycle where confidence follows obedience rather than preceding it. When trust is delayed, energy dissipates and focus scatters. Acting now concentrates attention and reinforces commitment. Decision creates structure, while indecision leaves space for distraction and doubt. The present moment is the only place where trust can be exercised. Yesterday is gone and tomorrow is not guaranteed. Trust must be chosen now in action, in movement, in commitment.